The alarm bells screamed through the corridors of Harmony's Edge Station like angry metal birds. Commander Ji-Wan ran his four-fingered hand across his smooth blue forehead and stared at the main display screen. The numbers didn't make sense. Nothing this big should exist. "Minji, run the scan again," he ordered his communications officer. Her purple tentacles danced over the control panel like she was playing some invisible instrument. The station's most powerful sensors swept the edge of the star system once more. "Same reading, Commander," Minji said, her voice tight with worry. "The ship is 3 kilometers long. That's bigger than our largest battle cruiser. Much bigger." Ji-Wan had served in the Galactic Defense Force for 23 years. He had seen ships from every known race in the galaxy. The Zephyrians built long, graceful vessels that looked like silver fish. The Mordaki preferred thick, armored blocks that could ram through asteroid fields. The insect-like Vorthon created ships with hundreds of tiny pods connected by metal webs. This ship looked like none of them. "What's the hull material?" Ji-Wan asked. "Unknown," replied Yuna, the science officer. Her scales changed from green to worried yellow as she studied her instruments. "It's not quantum steel, not bioceramic, not crystalline matrix. The computer can't identify it." The massive ship hung in space like a sleeping giant. It had appeared without warning, dropping out of hyperspace with a flash of blue light that lit up every sensor on the station. Now, it sat perfectly still. 3 million kilometers away, close enough to be dangerous but far enough to avoid immediate conflict. "Any response to our signals?" Ji-Wan asked. "Nothing yet," Minji said. "I've sent the standard first contact message in 47 languages. No reply." Ji-Wan walked to the main window and looked out at the stars. Kepler 442b spun slowly below them, its green and blue surface dotted with the lights of 6 billion. Inhabitants. They were traders, farmers, and peaceful folk who had never seen a war. If this unknown ship meant trouble, Harmony's Edge was all that stood between them and disaster. The station was not built for fighting. It had some defensive weapons, but they were meant to stop pirates and smugglers, not massive warships. Ji-Wan commanded only 12 small patrol craft and 1 outdated frigate. Against a ship that size, they would be like insects attacking a dragon. "Send a priority message to Galactic Command," Ji-Wan ordered. "Tell them we have an unidentified vessel. Classification unknown. Request immediate assistance." "Already sent." "Commander," Minji said. "Admiral Soman is en route with the 7th Fleet. Estimated arrival time is 6 hours. 6 hours felt like 6 years. Ji-Wan paced the command center while his crew watched their instruments. The alien ship did nothing. It didn't move, didn't scan them, didn't even rotate. It just waited. "Commander," Yuna called out, "I'm picking up some kind of energy signature from the ship. Very faint." "Weapons charging?" "I don't think so. It's more like life support systems, and maybe computers running background processes. So there was definitely someone alive on that ship. But who? And what did they want?" 3 hours passed in tense silence. Then Minji's tentacles suddenly went rigid. "Commander, I'm receiving a transmission from the alien vessel. Put it on the main screen." The display flickered and showed a face that made everyone in the command center step back in surprise. The creature looked almost like the ancient pictures of Terrans from the old databases. It had smooth pink skin, small dark eyes, and hair growing from the top of its head. But Terrans were just myths, weren't they? Stories told to children about a lost race that vanished before the galaxy was united. This is Captain Yunwoo of the vessel New Horizon, the creature said in perfect galactic standard. We request permission to establish communication protocols with your station. Jihuan found his voice after a moment of shock. This is Commander Jihuan of Harmony's Edge, Station. State your species and point of origin. We are human, the creature called Yunwoo said simply. We come from Earth. Jihuan had heard that name in old stories and dead languages. It was supposed to be the birth world of the Terrans, but no one had ever found it. Most scholars believed it was just a legend. Your ship is not in our databases, Jihuan said, carefully. We have no record of your species or your technology. Yunwoo smiled, showing small white teeth. That is not surprising. We have been careful to avoid contact until now. Why now? Because it is time. Before Jihuan could ask what that meant, Yuna gasped and pointed at her scanner. Commander, I'm detecting more ships. The display showed 3 more vessels dropping, out of hyperspace. They were smaller than the first ship, but still larger than anything in Jihuan's fleet. They took up positions around the system like they were setting up a perimeter. How many ships do you have? Jihuan asked, trying to keep his voice steady. Enough, Yunwoo replied. But we did not come here to fight. We came to talk. Talk about what? About joining your galactic community. We have been watching you for a long time. We think it is time to introduce ourselves properly. Watching them? For how long? Jihuan felt cold fear creep up his spine. If these humans had been observing the galaxy without being detected, what else did they know? What else could they do? I think, Jihuan said slowly, that you should speak to someone with more authority than me. Agreed, Yunwoo said. We will. Wait for your leaders to arrive. But Commander Jihuan? Yes? Please tell them that we come in peace. We have seen too much war in our travels. We prefer to solve problems with words, not weapons. The transmission ended, leaving the command center in stunned silence. Jihuan stared at the dark screen where the human's face had been. In all his years of service, he had never encountered anything like this. A completely unknown species with ships that defied classification and technology that couldn't be identified. Minji, he said finally, send another message to Admiral. Salmon, tell her to bring everything she's got and contact the Galactic Council. They need to know about this immediately. What should I tell them, Commander? Jihuan looked out at the alien ships hanging in space like metal stars. Tell them that everything we thought we knew about the galaxy just changed. As alarms continued to sound throughout the station, Jihuan wondered if this was the beginning of something wonderful or something terrible. Either way, the galaxy would never be the same again. Admiral Soman's flagship, Celestial Tide, dropped out of hyperspace with a flash of brilliant white light. Behind her came 23 other ships of the Galactic Defense Fleet, their hulls gleaming like jewels against the black of space. The arrival of so much firepower should have made Somin feel confident, but the sight of the human vessels made her stomach twist with worry. Mother of Stars, whispered her tactical officer, Dongyun. His scaled hands moved nervously over his control panel as he studied the readings. These ships are massive, Admiral, and their design is completely unknown. Soman had commanded fleets for 30 years. She had fought pirates, rebels, and rogue AI constructs. She understood space combat like others understood breathing. But these human ships made no sense according to everything she knew about warfare. What's their offensive capability? She asked. That's the strange part, Dongyun replied. his green scales shifting to confused orange. They have weapons, but they're all kinetic. No plasma cannons, no quantum torpedoes, no disruptor beams. Just projectile launchers and what look like explosive warheads. Primitive weapons? That's what I thought at first. But look at the number of them. Dong-yun brought up a detailed scan on the main screen. Each ship has hundreds of weapon ports, maybe thousands, and the projectiles they're designed to fire are huge. Somain studied the tactical display. In galactic warfare, ships typically carried a few powerful energy weapons that could punch through shields and armor with precise, focused beams. These human ships looked like they were designed to throw enormous amounts of metal and explosives at their enemies. It's like they're planning to fight an entirely different kind of war, she murmured. Her science officer, Yuna, looked up from her station with excitement in her large eyes. Admiral, I've been analyzing their hull composition. It's incredible. Explain. The outer layer appears to be some kind of reactive armor. When energy hits it, the material disperses the impact across a wide area. Our standard plasma weapons might be much less effective against it. And their shields? They don't seem to have energy shields at all. Instead, they have multiple layers of this reactive armor with empty space between each layer. It's designed to absorb kinetic impacts and dissipate energy attacks. Soman felt a chill run down her spine. These humans had built their ships to fight against exactly the kind of weapons the galaxy used. Either they were incredibly lucky or they knew far more about galactic military technology than they should. Run a deep scan of our databases, she ordered. Every ship design, every species record, every first contact report from the last 1,000 years. There has to be something about these humans somewhere. For 2 hours, the fleet's computers searched through trillions of records. They scanned through archaeological reports from dead civilizations, ancient star maps from the first galactic explorers, and even legend databases that most people considered fantasy. Nothing. The humans simply did not exist in any galactic record. It was as if they had appeared from another universe entirely. This is impossible, Soman said, staring at the negative search results. No species develops spaceflight without leaving traces. There should be evidence of their early expansion, radio signals, industrial waste, something. Maybe they're from outside the galaxy, suggested Dong-yun. The nearest galaxy is millions of light years away. No one has that kind of technology. Yuna cleared her throat. Admiral, there's something else. I've been analyzing the energy signatures from their ships. Their power source is nuclear fusion, but it's incredibly efficient. More efficient than our quantum cores in some ways. How is that possible? I think they've been working on fusion technology for a very long time. Much longer than most species do before discovering quantum energy. Soman frowned. Most civilizations discovered quantum power within a few hundred years of achieving spaceflight. It was simply more efficient than older technologies. Why would anyone stick with fusion unless they had no choice? Unless, she said slowly, they never had access to quantum technology. The implications hit her like a physical blow. If the humans had developed space travel without quantum technology, they would have needed to find other solutions to common problems. They would have had to be incredibly clever and resourceful. They would have developed along completely different lines from every other known civilization. Admiral, Minji called from the communication station, I'm receiving a transmission from the human vessel. They're requesting permission to board our ship. Just one of them. No, Admiral. Captain Hyunwoo says he wants to bring a small diplomatic team, a linguist and a military advisor. Soman considered this. Standard first contact protocols recommended meeting on neutral ground, but Harmony's Edge station was small and cramped. Her flagship had proper meeting rooms and security. Tell them they can come aboard, but scan them thoroughly before they enter our ship. Already done, Admiral. They're definitely organic life forms. Carbon-based, mammalian, roughly the same size as us. No weapons detected. 20 minutes later, Soman stood in the main hangar, Bay watching a small human shuttle dock with her ship. The vessel was sleek and simple, with clean lines and no decorative elements. It looked functional above all else. The airlock opened, and 3 humans stepped out. Soman had seen the images from Harmony's Edge, but meeting them in person was still shocking. They looked so much like the mythical Terrans that it couldn't be a coincidence. But Terrans were supposed to be extinct, if they had ever existed at all. Captain Hyunwoo was tall and lean, with dark hair and intelligent eyes. He wore a simple blue uniform with minimal decorations. Behind him came a woman with short black hair who carried what looked like a translation device, and a man with broad shoulders who moved like a soldier. "Admiral Soman," Hyunwoo said in perfect galactic standard. "Thank you for allowing us aboard your ship. I am Captain Hyunwoo. This is our linguist, Jisoo, and military liaison, Kyung-soo." "Captain," Soman replied carefully, "your species is unknown to us. Your ships are unlike anything in our databases. Perhaps you could explain where you come from and how you developed such advanced technology without our knowledge." Hyunwoo smiled. "We come from a small blue planet about 8,000 light-years from here. As for how we remained undetected, that was intentional." "Intentional?" "We've been watching your galactic civilization for almost 300 years, Admiral. We wanted to understand your customs, your politics, and your capabilities before making contact." The hangar bay fell completely silent. Even the background hum of the ship's systems seemed to quiet. 300 years, Soman managed to say. "Give or take a few decades," Jisoo said pleasantly. "We're very patient people." Kyung-soo stepped forward. "We've observed your military exercises, your trade routes, and your diplomatic methods. We know about the Vorthan expansion conflicts, the Zephyrian Civil War, and the Great Plague of 2387, events that had shaped galactic history, events that had been classified at the highest levels, events that these humans shouldn't know about." "How?" Soman whispered. "We're good at staying hidden," Hyunwoo said simply. "And we're very good at watching." Soman realized that everything she thought she knew about galactic security had just been shattered. If the humans could observe them for 3 centuries without being detected, what else might be hidden in the darkness between the stars? "What do you want from us?" she asked. "To join your community," Hyunwoo replied. "We think it's time to stop hiding." The conference room aboard Harmony's Edge station had never hosted anything like this before. Ambassador Tae-hyung of the Galactic Council sat at one end of the polished metal table, his silver skin reflecting the overhead lights. Around him sat representatives from 12 different species, each one more nervous than the last. At the other end of the table sat 3 humans. Captain Hyunwoo looked relaxed and confident, as if meeting with alien diplomats was something he did every day. Linguist Jisoo studied the assembled aliens with curious eyes, occasionally making notes on a small device. Military attaché Kyung-soo sat perfectly still, his hands folded, watching everything. "Let me understand this correctly," Ambassador Tae-hyung said, his voice carefully controlled. "You claim your species has been observing our civilization for 3 centuries without our knowledge." "That's correct," Hyunwoo confirmed. And you've established colonies in systems we believe to be empty. Also, correct. How many colonies? Hyunwoo glanced at Jisoo, who consulted her device. Currently, we have permanent settlements in 47 star systems, with another 18 systems under development. The conference room erupted in shocked voices. The Mordaki representative, a large creature covered in thick gray fur, pounded his fist on the table. Impossible! We have surveyed those regions. There are no inhabited worlds there. You surveyed them looking for the kind of life and technology you understand, Jisoo replied calmly. We've become very good at building settlements that don't show up on standard scans. Counselor Nari, a tall insectoid from the Vorthon cluster, clicked her mandibles together in agitation. This is a violation of the Galactic Settlement Accords. No species may establish colonies without proper registration and approval from the Council. We weren't members of the Galactic Council when we established those colonies, Kyung-soo pointed out. We couldn't register settlements with an organization we had no contact with. But you knew we existed, Ambassador Taehyung said. You admit you were watching us. Of course we knew you existed, Hyunwoo said. That's exactly why we were so careful. Your history is full of examples of what happens to smaller civilizations when they make contact with larger ones. The room fell uncomfortably quiet. It was true that galactic history included several instances where first contact had not gone well for the newly discovered species. Some had been absorbed into larger civilizations. Others had been restricted to their home systems. A few had simply vanished from the records entirely. We are not conquerors, Ambassador Taehyung said stiffly. No, Jisoo agreed. But you're also not always welcoming to species that don't fit your expectations. We wanted to be sure we could hold our own before revealing ourselves. And can you? Asked Counselor Daeho, a reptilian being from the Outer Rim territories. Kyung-soo smiled for the first time since entering the room. We believe so? Your ships are impressive, admitted Admiral Soman, who had been invited to observe the talks. But your technology appears to be primarily kinetic-based, primitive compared to our energy weapons. Primitive but effective, Kyung-soo replied. Your plasma cannons are powerful, but they require enormous amounts of energy and have limited ammunition. Our kinetic weapons can fire continuously for hours and don't depend on exotic matter or quantum generators. Quantity over quality, suggested Counselor Nari dismissively. Reliability over complexity, Kyung-soo corrected. Our ships can operate in environments that would shut down quantum-based systems. Radiation storms, electromagnetic fields, areas with unstable space-time. We build things to work anywhere. Jisoo leaned forward. We've studied your military engagements for centuries. Your standard tactics assume enemies will use similar technology to yours. Energy shields, quantum weapons, plasma drives. Our equipment is designed specifically to counter those assumptions. The implications hung in the air like a toxic cloud. These humans had not just been watching the galaxy passively. They had been studying galactic military capabilities and developing countermeasures. Are you threatening us? Ambassador Taehyung asked quietly. Absolutely not, Hyunwoo said firmly. We're trying to join you, but we want to join as equals, not as subjects. Equals? Counselor Daeho laughed, a harsh barking sound. Your entire species has fewer than 50 star systems. The Galactic Council represents over 3,000 inhabited worlds. Numbers aren't everything, Jisoo said mildly. Quality matters too. She activated her translation device and projected a star map into the center of the table. Red dots marked human colonies. scattered across a region of space the size of a galactic spiral arm. Your surveys missed our colonies because we built them in places you considered worthless, she explained. Asteroid belts, ice worlds, planets with extreme radiation. We don't need garden worlds to survive. We can live anywhere. The assembled aliens stared at the map in growing unease. The human colonies weren't randomly scattered. They formed a network that controlled access to several major hyperspace routes and surrounded 3 important galactic sectors. You've been positioning yourselves strategically, Admiral Soman observed. We've been building our civilization, Hyunwoo corrected. But yes, we chose our locations carefully. Ambassador Taehyung studied the star map with growing alarm. If the humans controlled those positions, they could disrupt trade routes and military movements across a significant portion of galactic space. They had placed themselves in a position where they couldn't be ignored or easily removed. What exactly do you want from the Galactic Council? He asked. Full membership, Hyunwoo said simply. Trade agreements, cultural exchange, scientific cooperation, the same things every species wants. And if we refuse? Hyunwoo's expression didn't change. Then we'll continue doing what we've been doing for 3 centuries, building our civilization, expanding our territory, and staying out of your way, while controlling strategic positions that could affect our security, Counselor Nari pointed out. While living in space, we settled legally, since it was unclaimed when we arrived, Kyung-soo replied. The circular logic was maddening and perfectly valid. The humans had done nothing technically wrong, but they had managed to place themselves in a position where they couldn't be dismissed or threatened. You've been planning this for a long time, Ambassador Taehyung said. We've been hoping for this for a long time, Jisoo corrected. We would much rather be part of the galactic community than isolated from it. But we won't sacrifice our independence for the privilege. Your independence is not in question, Ambassador Taehyung said carefully. Good, Hyunwoo smiled. Then we should have no trouble reaching an agreement. The conference continued for hours, but the basic dynamic had been established. The humans were not asking for permission to join the galaxy. They were announcing that they had already joined it and were offering to make it official. As the aliens struggled to adapt to this new reality, the humans sat calmly and answered questions with the patience of people who had been preparing for this conversation for centuries. Outside the station's windows, the massive human ships waited silently, a reminder that diplomacy was always backed by the possibility of other options. Fleet Admiral Sungjin received the emergency transmission while his ship, the Galactic Sovereign, patrolled the neutral zone near the Andromeda Gate. The message was encrypted with the highest security codes, marked for his eyes only. Unknown. Spacefaring species has made contact. Estimated fleet strength unknown. Technology classification unknown. Requesting immediate strategic assessment. Sungjin had served in the Galactic Defense Force for 40 years. He had never seen a message like this. Naeon, he called to his tactical officer. Set course for the Kepler 442 system. Maximum speed. Lieutenant Commander Naeon's crystalline skin flickered from blue to concerned yellow as she processed the order. Admiral, that will take us outside our patrol zone. Should I request permission from Galactic Command? Galactic Command sent us the mission, Sungjin replied, handing her the classified message. As Naeon read the transmission, her skin shifted to deep orange, the crystalline equivalent of shock. A completely unknown species? How is that possible? That's what we're going to find out. The journey to Kepler 442 took 18 hours at maximum hyperspace velocity. During the trip, Sung-Jin studied every piece of information the fleet's computers could gather about the region. What he found disturbed him more with each passing hour. "Admiral," Nayeon reported from her station, "I've been analyzing long-range sensor data from the past 50 years. There are anomalies." "What kind of anomalies?" "Unexplained energy signatures in supposedly empty systems, brief hyperspace disturbances that don't match any known ship types. And look at this." Nayeon brought up a star chart showing the region around human space. Red markers indicated the anomalies she had detected. "These readings have been dismissed as sensor glitches or natural phenomena," she explained. "But if you assume they're actually artificial..." Sung-Jin studied the pattern. The anomalies formed clear travel routes between star systems like highways through space. "Ship movements." "Exactly. We've been detecting human activity for decades and classifying it as background noise." The realization was deeply troubling. If the humans had been operating undetected for so long, it meant galactic sensor networks and intelligence gathering had massive blind spots. "What else have we missed?" Sung-Jin wondered aloud. When they arrived at Kepler 442, the sight of the human ships confirmed Sung-Jin's worst fears. The vessels were huge, heavily armed, and built with technologies that didn't match anything in galactic databases. "Send out reconnaissance drones," he ordered. "I want detailed scans of those ships, and deploy our long-range sensors. If there are more human vessels in nearby systems, I want to know about it." What the scans revealed over the next 6 hours was devastating to everything Sung-Jin thought he knew about galactic security. "Admiral," Nayeon called, her skin now flickering between orange and red in extreme distress. "The drones have detected 17 more human vessels in adjacent systems." "Military ships?" "Unknown. They appear to be different classes. Some look like cargo vessels, others might be civilian transports. But, Admiral, they all have the same armored hull design and weapon ports." Sung-Jin understood the implication immediately. The humans had militarized their entire space fleet. Every ship, whether it carried diplomats or groceries, was built to fight. What's their total firepower? Difficult to estimate. Their weapons are kinetic-based, which makes power calculations complex. But based on the number of launcher ports and the size of their projectiles... Nayeon paused, checking her calculations again. "A single human ship could potentially deliver more destructive force than one of our battle cruisers. And they have at least 20 ships in the immediate area." At least. Sung-Jin felt cold dread settling in his stomach. The Galactic Defense Force was designed to maintain peace between member species and defend against external threats. It was not prepared to face an unknown military force that had been building strength for centuries. "Send a coded message to all fleet commanders," he ordered. "Emergency intelligence briefing. I want every available ship commander to review these findings." While Nayeon prepared the communications, Sung-Jin studied the tactical data. The human ships were positioned strategically around the Kepler 442 system, controlling access points and maintaining clear fields of fire. Even their diplomatic vessel was positioned where it could quickly retreat or call for support. These were not the actions of peaceful explorers making first contact. These were the movements of a military force that had planned this encounter carefully. On Earth, 8,000 light-years away, General Haeun stood in the war room of Terran Defense Command. Banks of monitors showed the positions of every human ship within 100 light-years of Kepler 442. Red icons marked galactic vessels, blue icons showed human forces. "The galactic fleet is moving into defensive positions," reported Colonel Jae-hwan from his intelligence station. They're trying to assess our capabilities. Let them assess, Hyun replied calmly. How many ships do they have in the area now? 43 vessels of various classes. The largest concentration of galactic military power in that region for over a decade. And our force strength? We have 67 ships within immediate response range, another 130 within 6 hours travel time. All crews are at ready status. President Seokjin entered the war room, his face grim. General, what's your assessment of the situation? The galaxy is scared, Hyun replied bluntly. They've realized we're not some primitive species they can intimidate or ignore. They're trying to figure out if we're a threat. Are we? Hyun considered the question carefully. Not unless they make us one. But, Mr. President, we need to be realistic. If this goes badly, we're looking at a war with a civilization that spans thousands of star systems. Can we win such a war? We can make it extremely costly for them. Our ships are designed for exactly this kind of conflict. We've studied their tactics for centuries and built countermeasures, but ultimately, they have more resources than we do. Seokjin nodded grimly. Then we need to make sure it doesn't come to war. Agreed. But we also need to make sure they understand the price of forcing one. Back in the Kepler 442 system, Admiral Sungjin completed his assessment and prepared his report for Galactic Command. The conclusions were stark. Human military technology was specifically designed to counter galactic weapons and defenses. Their ships could operate in environments that would disable galactic vessels. Their kinetic weapons could potentially overwhelm energy shields through sheer volume of fire. Most concerning of all, their strategic positioning suggested they had been preparing for this encounter for generations. They controlled key hyperspace routes and had built their colonies in locations that would be difficult to attack but easy to defend. Admiral, Nayeon said quietly, what do we tell Galactic Command? Sungjin looked out at the human ships hanging, in space like metal predators. We tell them the truth. We're not dealing with a primitive species making first contact. We're facing a military power that's been studying us for centuries and has spent all that time preparing for exactly this moment. The galaxy's age of unquestioned dominance over its own space had just come to an end. Chief Science Advisor Minju had studied alien technology for 25 years, but nothing had prepared her for what she found aboard the human ship New Horizon. The vessel's corridors were clean and functional, with none of the artistic flourishes that most galactic species built into their ships. Everything looked designed for efficiency and reliability. Welcome aboard, said Engineer Wonho, leading the scientific exchange team through the ship's main engineering section. I apologize if things look a bit plain. We build for function rather than beauty. Minju ran her tentacles along a wall panel, feeling the strange texture of the metal. What is this hull material? Our scans couldn't identify it. Steel titanium. Composite with ceramic inserts, Wonho replied. Nothing exotic, just very well engineered. Steel? Minju was confused. That's an ancient material. Most species stopped using it thousands of years ago. Most species discovered better alternatives, Wonho agreed. We had to make steel work because it was what we had available. After a few centuries of improvement, our steel became better than most modern materials. Dr. Jin Hyuk, the team's physicist, studied a massive engine assembly. These are fusion reactors, very large fusion reactors. Our primary power source, Wonho confirmed. Each ship has 6 main reactors plus dozens of backup units. But fusion is so inefficient compared to quantum cores, protested Minju. Why not upgrade to quantum? Power? Wanho exchanged glances with Dr. Jinhyuk. Because quantum cores require rare elements that don't exist in our region of space. We had to develop fusion technology that was more efficient than quantum systems. That's impossible, Minju said automatically. Would you like to see the power? Output readings? Jinhyuk offered. For the next hour, Minju studied the human fusion technology with growing amazement. The reactors were incredibly complex, with multiple fusion chambers, magnetic containment fields that could be adjusted in real time, and waste heat recovery systems that captured almost every joule of energy produced. This is remarkable, she admitted. Your fusion efficiency is higher than our quantum cores. It should be, Wanho said proudly. We've been working on it for over 400 years. When you can't simply upgrade to better technology, you have to perfect the technology you have. The revelation was disturbing. Most galactic civilizations developed quantum technology quickly because it was easier than perfecting older methods. The humans had been forced to become incredibly sophisticated with primitive tools. What about your weapons? Asked Dr. Mingyu, the team's military technology specialist. Kinetic projectiles seem very basic. Jinhyuk led them to a weapons bay where massive launchers lined the walls. Basic, but effective. Would you like a demonstration? You're going to fire weapons near a peaceful scientific exchange? Minju asked, nervously. At an asteroid, Jinhyuk clarified. There's a nickel-iron asteroid about 50,000 kilometers away. Perfect target. Through the weapons bay's viewing window, they watched a human projectile streak toward the distant asteroid. The impact was spectacular, shattering the space rock into glowing fragments. That projectile was solid tungsten, weighing 2 tons, moving at 15% of light speed, Jinhyuk explained. No explosives needed. Kinetic energy alone did the damage, Minju calculated quickly. That's more destructive force than most. Plasma cannons. And we can fire continuously. No waiting for energy weapons to recharge. No exotic ammunition to manufacture. Just metal and momentum. Dr. Mingyu studied the launcher system. But the energy required to accelerate projectiles to those speeds is provided by our fusion reactors, Wanho said, which can run continuously for years without refueling. The implications were staggering. Galactic weapons were more sophisticated, but required enormous amounts of energy and rare materials. Human weapons were simpler, but could be used almost indefinitely. You've essentially solved the logistics problem that limits most military operations, Mingyu observed. We had to, Jinhyuk replied. When you're exploring unknown space far from supply lines, reliability becomes more important than raw power. Minju was beginning to understand something important about human psychology. They didn't just adapt to their limitations, they turned those limitations into advantages. What about faster-than-light communication? She asked. Most species struggle with reliable interstellar communications. We solved that decades ago, Wanho said casually. Would you like to see our communication array? The human communication system was unlike anything in galactic technology. Instead of trying to transmit signals through hyperspace, they had built a network of relay stations that created stable communication channels across vast distances. Each relay station is essentially a small space station with its own fusion reactor and defensive systems, Jinhyuk explained. They create a communication network that can't be disrupted by hyperspace storms or quantum interference. How many relay stations do you have? Minju asked, though she was starting to fear the answer. About 3,000 across our territory, Wanho replied. Each one can communicate instantly with any other station in the network. Minju felt dizzy. The humans had solved one of the galaxy's most persistent technical problems by building thousands of space stations. The cost and effort required would be enormous, but the result was a communication system more reliable than anything the Galactic Council possessed. "Your entire civilization is connected in real time," she said weakly. "Of course," Jin-Hyuk said, as if this was obvious. "How else would we coordinate activities across dozens of star systems?" Dr. Ming-Yu was studying tactical displays that showed the human communication network. "This gives you an enormous military advantage. You can coordinate fleet movements across your entire territory instantly." "Military advantage?" Wonho looked puzzled. "It's just practical. How do you manage large-scale operations without real-time communication?" We don't," Minju admitted. "Most galactic military operations are limited to single star systems, because communication delays make larger coordination impossible." The humans exchanged glances. It was clear they had not realized this limitation of galactic technology. "That explains a lot about galactic military tactics," Jin-Hyuk said thoughtfully. "We wondered why your fleets never attempted complex multi-system maneuvers." Minju realized that the human technology assessment had been wrong from the beginning. The humans weren't primitive. They had simply solved different problems than galactic civilization. While the galaxy had focused on sophisticated individual technologies, humans had built robust, interconnected systems. "You've created a completely different kind of technological civilization," she said. "We've created the civilization we needed to survive," Wonho corrected. "When you start with limited resources in hostile environments, you learn to build things that work reliably and can be maintained indefinitely. And when you're always outnumbered," Jin-Hyuk added, "you learn to build systems that multiply your effectiveness." As the scientific exchange continued, Minju began to understand that the galaxy had encountered something unprecedented. The humans had not just developed different technology, they had developed a different philosophy of technology. Where galactic civilization prized elegance and power, humans valued reliability and interconnectedness. It was a philosophy born from centuries of survival in hostile environments, and it had produced a civilization that was far more dangerous than it appeared on the surface. "One more question," Minju said as the tour concluded. "How long would it take you to build another ship like this one?" "About 8 months," Wonho replied. "We have shipyards in 12 systems." "And how many ships could you build simultaneously?" Jin-Hyuk smiled. "How many do you think we might need?" Director Chae-Young stood in the secure briefing room of Galactic Intelligence Command, staring at a holographic star map that was changing everything she thought she knew about galactic security. Red dots marked confirmed human settlements. Yellow dots showed suspected human activity, and blue lines traced probable trade routes between human colonies. The map was terrifying. "Agent Minho, give me your report," she ordered. Minho, a Zephyrian operative with silver skin and large eyes, activated his personal datapad. "Director, I spent 3 weeks infiltrating the human trade station they call Haven Point. What I found there challenges every assumption we've made about these people." "Explain." "They don't have a central government like we assumed. Each human colony operates independently, but they're all connected through something called the Colonial Assembly. It's more like a loose federation than a traditional empire." Chae-Young frowned. "That should make them weaker, not stronger. Divided authority leads to inefficient decision-making." "That's what I thought too," Minho agreed. "But it's exactly the opposite. Because each colony is self-sufficient, they can't be conquered by capturing a capital world. Because they're all connected by their communication network, they can coordinate responses instantly. And because they all share the same basic culture and technology, they can support each other without complex negotiations. What kind of support? Minho brought up images from his surveillance mission. I watched a cargo convoy arrive at Haven Point from a colony called New Seoul. The cargo included manufactured goods, raw materials, and technical specialists. The convoy had been traveling for 6 months, but the moment it arrived, the supplies were distributed according to a plan that had been coordinated in real time across dozens of star systems. They're sharing resources across interstellar distances, Chae-young said slowly. More than that. They're sharing everything. Technology, expertise, personnel, military assets. It's like they've created a civilization where every colony is simultaneously independent and part of a larger whole. Dr. Susie, Galactic Intelligence's chief xenopsychologist, leaned forward in her chair. Agent Minho, did you observe their decision-making process? How do they resolve conflicts between colonies? That's the strangest part, Minho replied. They seem to avoid conflicts by giving each colony responsibility for different aspects of their civilization. One system specializes in ship manufacturing. Another focuses on scientific research. A third handles agricultural production. They've created a network where everyone depends on everyone else. Mutual interdependence, Susie mused. It's a very stable social structure. Each part of their civilization has a vested interest in protecting every other part. Chae-young studied the intelligence reports from other agents. The picture they painted was of a human civilization that was far more sophisticated than its technology suggested. Agent Hyerin, what did you discover about their military structure? Agent Hyerin, a insectoid Vorthon with excellent infiltration skills, clicked her mandibles nervously. Director, they don't have a military in the traditional sense. Every human adult has basic military training, and every civilian ship can be converted to military use within hours. A militia system? More comprehensive than that. I observed what they call a defense exercise in the Kepler 186 system. Within 6 hours of the alert being issued, 47 civilian vessels had been converted to armed patrol ships and deployed in defensive formations. Meanwhile, the system's asteroid mining platforms had been reconfigured as weapons platforms. They militarized an entire star system in 6 hours? Chae-young asked incredulously. The infrastructure was already in place, Hyerin explained. Their mining equipment can be used as mass drivers for launching projectiles. Their cargo ships have modular weapon mounts that can be installed quickly. Their communication relays double as sensor networks. They've built their entire civilization so it can switch from peaceful to military mode almost instantly. The implications were staggering. The Galactic Defense Force was designed to fight traditional wars against organized military forces. The humans had created a civilization where every piece of infrastructure could become a weapon. Every civilian could become a soldier, and every peaceful colony could become a fortress. What about their population? Chae-young asked. Agent Minho consulted his files. Based on shipping manifests, communication traffic, and resource consumption, I estimate they have at least 12 billion people across their known colonies. But, Director, that might not include their deep space habitats. Deep space habitats? I detected signs of human activity in asteroid belts and comet clouds far from any star. They appear to be building habitats in locations that wouldn't show up on normal surveys. There could be millions more humans living in places we've never thought to look. Dr. Susie was taking notes rapidly. This explains their psychological profile, They're not just adaptable. They're specifically adapted to survive in any environment. They see challenges as opportunities to develop new capabilities. Give me an example, Chae-young requested. Most species would view a planet with extreme radiation as uninhabitable, Susie explained. Humans apparently see it as a perfect location for certain types of manufacturing that require radioactive materials. They don't just adapt to hostile environments, they find ways to turn environmental hazards into resources. Agent Hyerin added, "During my observation mission, I watched human engineers solve a problem with their fusion reactor by rebuilding it using materials they mined from a nearby asteroid. They didn't call for replacement parts or technical support. They just fixed it themselves using whatever was available. They're remarkably self-reliant," Dr. Susie noted, "but they're also remarkably cooperative. It's a combination that makes them extremely resilient as a civilization." Chae-young was beginning to understand why the humans had remained hidden for so long. They weren't trying to avoid detection out of fear. They were gathering intelligence and building strength, while the galaxy remained unaware of their existence. "What's their intelligence-gathering capability?" she asked. Agent Minho looked uncomfortable. "Director, I think they know more about us than we know about them. During my time at Haven Point, I overheard conversations that included details about galactic politics, military capabilities, and economic trends that should be classified information. How could they have access to classified information?" "I'm not sure they need access," Dr. Susie interjected. "If they've been observing us for centuries, they could have developed predictive models of galactic behavior. They might be able to deduce classified information from patterns in public data. Or," Agent Hyerin said quietly, "they might have better intelligence assets than we realized." The briefing room fell silent as everyone considered the implications. If the humans had been conducting intelligence operations for centuries without detection, what else might they know? What else might they be capable of? "Director," Agent Minho said hesitantly, "there's one more thing. While I was at Haven Point, I noticed they were very interested in galactic diplomatic protocols and legal frameworks. They were studying our laws and procedures very carefully. Why? I think they're preparing for formal contact, but they want to understand all the rules before they start playing the game." Chae-young stared at the star map showing human territories. The red dots seemed to pulse like a slow heartbeat, reminding her that somewhere out there, 12 billion humans were going about their daily lives in a civilization that had been built specifically to be undetectable and unconquerable. "Recommendations?" she asked. Dr. Susie spoke first. "We should assume they know everything we know and plan accordingly. This is not a species we can intimidate or manipulate." Agent Hyerin nodded agreement. "Their military capabilities are designed specifically to counter our advantages. Any conflict would be extremely costly." Agent Minho added, "But they seem genuinely interested in peaceful coexistence. Every human I observed was curious about galactic civilization and eager to learn about other species." Chae-young made her decision. "Prepare a full intelligence assessment for the Galactic Council. Include everything we've discovered and all our projections. And send a recommendation that we treat these humans as equals, not as a newly discovered primitive species." As her agents filed out to prepare their reports, Chae-young remained alone with the star map. The red dots marking human colonies seemed to be watching her, a reminder that the galaxy's age of unquestioned supremacy was over. The emergency session of the Galactic Council had been called at dawn, Galactic Standard Time. Chancellor He-jin stood before the assembled representatives of 43 species, her usually calm demeanor showing cracks of stress. the holographic display behind her showed a three-dimensional map of the galaxy that would have been unrecognizable to most citizens just days earlier. Red zones marked confirmed human territories. There were so many of them. "Fellow council members," Hyejin began, her voice carefully controlled, "the intelligence reports we have received over the past week have fundamentally changed our understanding of galactic geography and politics." Counselor Daiho, the reptilian representative from the Outer Rim, raised his scaled hand. "Chancellor, surely these reports are exaggerated. No species could have established such an extensive presence without our knowledge." "That's what we thought too," Hyejin replied grimly. "Strategic analyst Jinwoo will present the findings." Jinwoo, a young Crystallian whose skin was flickering rapidly between colors indicating extreme stress, activated the detailed survey data. The holographic display zoomed in to show individual star systems, each one marked with human installations. The Yang. Reconnaissance missions have confirmed human presence in 237 star systems, Jinwoo reported. This includes permanent colonies, industrial installations, and deep space habitats. Their total population is estimated at over 12 billion individuals. The council chamber erupted in shocked voices from a dozen different species. Representative Sunmi of the Vorthan cluster stood up, her insectoid features rigid with disbelief. 237 systems? That's larger than the Zephyrian Commonwealth. How could an entire galactic power exist without our knowledge? Because they specifically designed their civilization to be undetectable, Jinwoo explained. They build in asteroid belts, ice worlds, and radiation-heavy environments that we don't normally survey. Their ships use stealth coatings and operate on routes that avoid our sensor networks. Chancellor Hyejin activated another display showing human settlement patterns. The distribution is not random. They control several critical hyperspace junction points and have positioned colonies to monitor major galactic trade routes. "Monitor?" asked Counselor Bauman, a gas-breathing methane dweller. "For how long?" "Our analysis suggests they have been observing galactic civilization for approximately 300 years, Jinwoo said. They possess detailed intelligence on our military capabilities, political structures, and economic systems." The chamber fell into stunned silence. 3 centuries of observation meant the humans knew more about galactic civilization than most galactic species knew about each other. Representative Chaewon of the Aquatic Alliance spoke up, her translation device rendering her subsonic speech into audible words. "What are their intentions? Are they planning conquest?" "Unknown," Hyejin admitted. "But their actions suggest a different goal. They appear to be building a civilization that is unconquerable rather than one designed for conquest." Jinwoo brought up tactical assessments. Human military doctrine focuses on defense and deterrence. Their colonies are heavily fortified, their ships are designed for survival rather than aggression, and their population is trained for resistance rather than expansion. "But their technology," protested Counselor Daiho. "Surely our quantum weapons and energy shields give us a significant advantage." "Actually, no," Jinwoo said quietly. "Human technology is specifically designed to counter our standard military systems. Their kinetic weapons can overwhelm energy shields through volume of fire. Their ships can operate in environments that would disable our quantum-based systems. And their fusion reactors provide more sustained power than our quantum cores." The implications were devastating. The Galactic Defense Force had been designed to fight threats it understood. The humans had spent centuries studying galactic military doctrine and building countermeasures. What about their industrial capacity? Asked Representative Sunmi. This is perhaps the most concerning aspect, Jinwoo replied. Humans have established shipyards in 16 different star systems. Their modular construction techniques allow them to build vessels faster than any known galactic civilization. Conservative estimates suggest they could construct 1,000 new ships within a year if necessary. 1,000 ships? Counselor Bowman's breathing apparatus hissed in alarm. The entire galactic defense fleet has fewer than 800 vessels. Chancellor, Hyejin stepped forward. The situation is more complex than simple military calculations. The humans have created a civilization that is simultaneously unified and decentralized. They have no central government to target, no capital world to threaten, no single point of failure that could be exploited. How is that possible? Asked Representative Chaewon. Their colonial assembly operates through consensus and mutual support, Jinwoo explained. Each colony is self-sufficient but connected to all others through their communication network. They share resources, technology, and personnel freely across interstellar distances. It's like fighting smoke, murmured Counselor Daeho. No matter how much you destroy, the rest adapts and continues. The strategic assessment continued for hours, each new revelation more troubling than the last. The humans had built a civilization specifically designed to be resilient against the kind of threats that had historically destroyed or absorbed smaller species. What do they want from us? Chancellor Hyejin finally asked. According to their diplomatic communications, they seek full membership in the Galactic Council with all associated rights and privileges, Jinwoo reported. They offer technological exchange, trade agreements, and cultural cooperation. And if we refuse, they have indicated they will continue their current expansion and development plans. They are not asking for permission to exist. They are offering to formalize their existence. The distinction was crucial. The humans were not supplicants seeking admission to galactic civilization. They were an established power offering to make their presence official. Representative Sunmi asked the question everyone was thinking. Do we have the capability to force them to accept our terms? Jinwoo consulted his tactical projections. A military confrontation with human civilization would require the combined fleets of all major galactic powers. Even then, success would not be guaranteed. Their defensive preparations and technological advantages would make any conflict extremely costly. And, Chancellor Hyejin added, a war of that magnitude would destabilize the entire galaxy. Trade routes would be disrupted, colonies would be endangered, and the economic cost would be enormous. The council members looked at each other with the growing realization that their options were limited. The humans had not asked for permission to become a galactic power. They had simply become one while the galaxy wasn't paying attention. There is one more consideration, Jinwoo said hesitantly. Our intelligence suggests that humanity's expansion is continuing. They have multiple colony ships en route to new systems and are actively surveying regions beyond their current territory. How much more expansion? Asked Counselor Bowman. Unknown. But their rate of growth suggests they could double their territory within 50 years. The implications hung in the chamber like a toxic cloud. The humans were not just revealing themselves. They were announcing their intention to become one of the galaxy's dominant civilizations. Chancellor Hyejin called for a recess to allow the representatives to consult with their home governments. As the chamber emptied, she remained alone with the holographic display showing human territories. The red zones seemed to pulse with life and energy, a reminder that somewhere in those distant star systems, 12 billion humans were building. something unprecedented in galactic history, a civilization that could not be conquered, could not be ignored, and could not be stopped. The galaxy's age of stable borders and predictable politics had just ended. The neutral space station Concordia had been built in just 3 months, a joint project between human and galactic engineers. It floated in empty space halfway between human territory and the galactic core, a symbol of the new reality that both civilizations were struggling to understand. Galactic Supreme Commander Siwan walked through the station's corridors with barely concealed amazement. The human sections were clean and functional, with no wasted space or decorative elements. The galactic sections featured the flowing curves and artistic touches that most species preferred. Where the two sections met, the different design philosophies created a striking contrast. They built their half of the station in 6 weeks, his aide, Lieutenant Yuna, reported. Our construction teams are still working on the final details of our sections. How is that possible? Modular construction techniques, sir. They prefabricated everything in their shipyards and assembled it here. Their engineering philosophy prioritizes speed and efficiency over aesthetics. Siwan had commanded galactic forces for 30 years, but everything about the humans challenged his understanding of how civilizations operated. They were simultaneously more advanced and more primitive than anything in his experience. The conference room where the final negotiations would take place was a perfect blend of human practicality and galactic elegance. President Da-Yun of the Human Colonial Assembly sat at one end of the long table, flanked by her advisors. She was a small woman with graying hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything. Supreme Commander Siwan, she said as he entered. Thank you for agreeing to these negotiations. I know this situation has been unexpected for your people. President Da-Yun, Siwan replied formally. I must admit, discovering that an entire galactic civilization has been observing us for centuries has been quite a shock. Da-Yun smiled, and for a moment she looked less like a head of state and more like someone's grandmother. We never intended to cause alarm. We simply learned caution from studying galactic history. Caution? Your records contain numerous examples of what happens to smaller civilizations during first contact. Some are absorbed into larger powers. Others are restricted to their home systems. A few simply disappear from the historical record entirely. Siwan couldn't deny the truth of that statement. Galactic expansion had not always been gentle or fair to newly discovered species. So you chose to remain hidden until you were strong. Enough to defend yourselves, he said. Until we were strong enough to be treated as equals, Da-Yun corrected. We have no desire for conflict, but we also have no intention of being anyone's junior partner. The negotiations that followed were unlike anything in galactic diplomatic history. Usually, first contact involved a powerful galactic civilization meeting a primitive species that was eager for advanced technology and protection. The humans were offering partnership between equals. Your technological capabilities are impressive, admitted Chancellor He-Jin, who had arrived to personally oversee the talks. But your industrial capacity is what truly concerns us. Concerns? Asked Dr. Jin-Yuk, the human science advisor. We prefer to think of it as an asset. Our shipyards and manufacturing facilities could greatly benefit galactic commerce. Or galactic security, added Admiral Soman pointedly. General Haeyun, representing human military interests, leaned forward. Admiral, our military capabilities are designed for defense. We have no interest in conquering galactic territory. We already have more space than we can fully develop in the next century. But your expansion continues, Chancellor He-Jin observed. Of course, President Da-hyun said matter-of-factly. "We're explorers by nature, but expansion doesn't mean conquest. We're happy to share space with any species that wants to coexist peacefully." The fundamental difference in philosophy was becoming clear. Galactic civilization was based on defined territories and clear boundaries. Human civilization was based on continuous expansion and adaptation to new environments. How do we reconcile these different approaches? Siwan asked. By recognizing that the galaxy is enormous, suggested Dr. Jisoo, the human linguist. There's room for multiple civilizations to grow and prosper without interfering with each other. And by establishing clear protocols for cooperation, added President Da-hyun. Trade agreements, technology exchange, joint scientific projects. We have much to offer each other. Over the following days, the negotiations revealed the true scope of what the humans were proposing. They weren't just seeking membership in the Galactic Council. They were offering to revolutionize how galactic civilization operated. Their communication network could provide real-time coordination across the entire galaxy. Their manufacturing techniques could dramatically reduce the cost of starships and space stations. Their defensive technologies could help protect peaceful worlds from raiders and hostile forces. "You're offering to share all of this freely?" Chancellor Hyejin asked in amazement. "In exchange for full membership and equal treatment," Da-hyun confirmed. "We believe that a stronger galactic civilization benefits everyone. But you've spent centuries developing these capabilities in secret. Why share them now?" President Da-hyun was quiet for a long moment, considering her words carefully. "Because isolation is not sustainable in the long term. We can build the most advanced civilization in the galaxy, but without cultural exchange and cooperation with other species, we'll eventually stagnate. And," added General Hayon with a slight smile, "because we've been watching you for 300 years. We've seen your struggles with communication delays, supply chain problems, and coordination difficulties. We can help solve those problems." The final breakthrough came when Dr. Jin-hyuk casually mentioned that humans had developed faster-than-light communication technology that could work reliably across galactic distances. "Impossible," said Chancellor Hyejin automatically. "Would you like to test it?" Jin-hyuk offered. "We can establish a real-time communication link with any location in the galaxy." The demonstration that followed changed everything. Within minutes, Chancellor Hyejin was speaking in real time with representatives from the Outer Rim territories, something that normally required days of message relay delays. "This technology alone could transform galactic governance," she breathed. "It's just the beginning," President Da-hyun said. "We have solutions to problems your civilization didn't even know it had." The Terra Accords were signed 3 weeks later in a ceremony that was broadcast across the galaxy. For the first time in galactic history, a newly contacted species was granted full membership status immediately, with no probationary period or restricted rights. As President Da-hyun signed the final document, she looked up at the assembled galactic representatives. "This marks the beginning of a new era for all of us. Together, we can build something greater than any of our civilizations could achieve alone." Supreme Commander Siwan watched the signing ceremony with mixed emotions. The galaxy had gained a powerful new ally, but it had also lost its monopoly on advanced technology and military power. The balance of galactic politics had shifted permanently. In the weeks that followed, human technologies began appearing throughout galactic space. Communication delays that had plagued interstellar coordination for millennia were eliminated overnight. Trade routes became more efficient as human logistics expertise was applied to galactic commerce. Scientific research accelerated as human and galactic researchers began collaborating. But perhaps the most important change was psychological. For the first time in galactic history, the established powers realized they were not the only advanced civilizations in the universe. The humans had proven that intelligence, patience, and careful planning could overcome almost any disadvantage. Intelligence Officer Yoongi filed his final report on the human integration 6 months after the Terra Accords were signed. His conclusions were both reassuring and deeply unsettling. Humanity has successfully integrated into galactic civilization while maintaining their independence and unique cultural identity. They have become valuable partners in trade, technology, and security. However, their success raises important questions about what else might be hidden in the unexplored regions of our galaxy. If one species could observe us for 3 centuries without detection, develop countermeasures to our military capabilities, and position themselves strategically throughout galactic space, what other surprises might be waiting for us? The humans have reminded us that the galaxy is far larger and more complex than we assumed. Recommendation: we should approach future exploration and expansion with greater humility and awareness. The age of galactic supremacy is over. The age of galactic cooperation has begun. As celebrations continued across both human and galactic worlds, few people noticed the small, automated probes that quietly slipped away from human space and disappeared into the vast darkness between the stars. Humanity's integration into galactic civilization was complete, but their exploration of the universe was far from over. The galaxy had gained new allies, but it had also gained new mysteries. And somewhere in the distant reaches of space, other civilizations might be watching and waiting, learning the same lessons that had made humanity so formidable. Patience, preparation, and the understanding that true strength comes not from power alone, but from the wisdom to use it properly.